Okay.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Invitto experience. Today, we're going to be discussing the mind-body connection and the power of sport. We're joined by Amanda Bongiorno. Amanda is a retired Division I softball player and a licensed massage therapist. Amanda, thank you for joining us today. If you wouldn't mind, take a moment and introduce yourself to everyone.
Thanks for having me, Bobby. My name is Amanda Bongiorno, and honored to be here with Bobby Joe. We've known each other since we were children in the sports world. And throughout the years, we both ventured into Division I sports, which led me to making a big decision if I wanted to continue my education with a master's degree, since I majored in two fields that really required that to really thrive in that career. But I wasn't sure yet. So I did a lot of self-exploration, and I ended up settling with this decision that really ended up being something that helped me recover from years of sports. So in the first 10 years of my career, it really was something that was teaching me how to better care for myself. So I received an Associate's of Science in Massage Therapy from Kaiser University, and that was in 2008. I started practicing massage in 2006, so it was a 2-year program. And then shortly after that, I moved to California and got some hands-on experience. When I moved back to Florida, I got licensed here, and I started my 16-year journey as a massage therapist. So it's helped me so much recover so much, through my years as an athlete. And I don't know how we did it all without it then.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point. Let's talk a little bit with that mind-body connection and build on what you just said. You don't know how we would have done it without those resources or tools or people like yourself around us to help us understand the importance of things like recovery. So Amanda, if you would tell us a little bit about the mind-body connection and how important recovery is and some things that you do to help, athletes that you work with or even just professionals.
Sure. Well, when we were growing up, it was very much so about just toughening up. And, and our coaches were so brilliant at the mental side of the game that really sculpted our raw talent. So we were all very natural born athletes. So that in combination with that leadership made us even better. So I'm not so sure, the mind body spirit connection for me was something that I wasn't aware of until my late 20s, early 30s, really even maybe a little later than that. And athletes today at such a young age are, witnessing this concept of sports and recovery and mind-body connection. It's beautiful to see how young they're getting to experience that. So I don't feel like I made a total, and they might not be mature enough, but they're getting introduced to it in a positive way, in a way that we really weren't given.
Absolutely.
And given our background and where we came from, the things we were struggling with psychologically and mentally was being supported the best that they knew how, but not to really facilitate what would happen to us after our identity as an athlete was no longer existing. And we just loved the game. We played for so much fun, and it was very competitive. But, we weren't thinking about college when we were, 9, 10 years old.
Right.
But today they're actually sculpting them so young. There's so much refinement happening at such a young age, that it's really kind of incredible to witness,
Yeah. And Amanda, that brings up a really great point. And I think it aligns as well with what you're seeing in the strength and conditioning, being introduced to athletes at a much younger age. I know that I'm seeing kids that are 10 years old going to things like a mild version of CrossFit, things that
Yes.
you and I probably, I know personally, I don't think I hit a weight room until it was like junior year. And it was like,
Yeah.
the scouts are on you, Bobby, you know, get in that
Yeah.
weight room. And my dad was driving the van next to me while I was running. So I completely agree. That's great to see. If it's okay with you, let's talk a little bit about the mind-body connection and what happens in our brains in those moments, whether it's in a boardroom, in a classroom, or on a field, when your mind gets, you know, where you're starting to have that negative self-talk or that fear or anxiety creep in, and how that affects our body. And what are some things that we can do with some things like breath work or things like that that really help calm the mind and in relation also calm the body?
Yeah. So I feel like, because when I had a really solid coach, and I'm going to always go back to that leadership, my mental state was elevated. So if I had a coach that could hold that space for me, I was able to mirror that, you know. But if I didn't have a coach, and I had a few, you know, it would bring out more of that chaotic energy in me. And I mean, in hindsight, I see it, and then I just, you know, it's growing pains, and they're adults, so they have, you know, they have their own stuff too, and their own growth in their own timing. So, you know, the mind, it's so powerful, and you have to really, in any sport, be to go to that next level, you have to have the mind frame to match the talent. And if you don't have the mind frame to match the talent, then you're you know, you're going to get stung, you know. So I feel like we were winners, you know, we very rarely lost. So I didn't really taste, like, I softball is what built my confidence. You know, people say, "Oh, you were so confident in high school." Like, I didn't know that you were struggling with X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I didn't just have me. I had this like whole group of young athletes, which I wanted to mention that they call them, Austin Wasserman from Wasserman
Yep.
Strength calls them the young
Young
bloods.
bloods. Yes, I love that.
And I mean, we were young bloods too, but we were also during a time where women were in sports, were just breaking out of the mold
So
and
true.
just showing how we can match, and we could go, and we could go harder, and we're not princesses. And but our dads, and you know, we're
Yeah.
Italian, we were still their princesses. So
Right.
the idea of us going to the gym and pumping iron,
Iron.
we
Right.
couldn't
Right.
even really fathom that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I felt awkward in our CHS
Weight
gym.
room. Right. With the
Yeah,
football team. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was scary in there.
Yep.
You know, it was
Yeah.
scary in there.
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
I mean,
but
I can look back and remember it. Like I remember my first college visit and seeing the weight room and watching kids work out and going, oh, we do that. Like, you know, you're right. It was such a different time. And I think a really big testament goes to the energy and the environment and who's guiding that energy. And we growing up had a great support system, and we were blessed with the ability to play rec ball together, travel ball, and high school ball together. So we knew each other. Like you said, you and I played together. I think you were 11, I was 12, and we played together, whether it was on the same team or against each other, our whole lives, even in college. So
yeah,
we really knew each other and knew how to hold space for each other. And if I was on the ledge and about to go up with the bases loaded and 2 outs, I knew I could look to you for that calm presence, or Stacy Veach or Jen Carlo, you know, or you know, Lara Foster. We had those people. We also had an incredible coach who had the calmest demeanor. So
yeah,
I love what you said about when you're not in a place where you have that calm energy or someone who can hold space for you, how that chaos can be turned around. And I think that you do see that with younger athletes, and even taking it further outside of the world of sport, just into everyday life. You're seeing, I know I have 5 nieces, and you know, they get very flustered with technology. Like when the internet goes out, they don't know how to function without instant gratification. And those are
yeah,
things that I think that we learned, and you can probably talk more on, but I think we learned without even realizing we were learning it, the importance of things like taking a breath. Like I remember Coach Leduc always saying to me, Bobby, just breathe. And in my head at 15, right, trying to win a starting position, trying to win a county and state championship, I don't think I ever took the mindset of like, okay, he's telling me to breathe because when I breathe, it calms my heart, it calms my body, I stay loose. I just knew he told me to breathe, so I was going to breathe because I
I was
wanted
just
to
gonna
breathe.
say, you did what he told you to do, and that's it.
Yep. But it
I know.
worked, you know, it
If
was
he said
trust.
jump, we said how high, and
Exactly.
that was really what it was, that respect. And it was his respect for us that allowed us to respect ourselves even more.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I love Mr. Leduc. I really do. You know, everybody has gone, um you know, there's so many generations that got to experience greatness with him. And we, you know, we were going to games before we were even in high school, witnessing that greatness. And it's funny, I don't have our ring anymore, our championship ring. And I just told Jen today that I'm gonna have a new one made made up,
Yeah. I
because
still
I
have mine, so I can send you a picture if you want.
that's what I, yes. She's like, ask it. And I'm like, yes. So, you know, yeah, I mean, the concept of taking a deep breath or slowing down, like once we were in the go, 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 go groove, like, you know, I was always a very like really quiet, you know, at heart shy. If I felt comfortable around you, I'd come out of my shell. But it took a lot for me to yell and cheer. And you know, but that was a part of me that I didn't even know existed, you know. And now that I'm older and I have it in me, I wonder sometimes, is that even me, or did my teammates bring that out in me? Did my teammates sculpt that in me, that camaraderie and that the synchronicity of it? You know, it's like we were part of something that was being orchestrated that I don't think my maturity could even, you know, comprehend at the time. And today we have kids understanding the concept of mental health more, and it not being such a taboo concept. And so not only do they have the support, but I have to say it's kind of interesting because now it's like the pressure's even tighter, the vice is even stronger, and there's so much more expected of them. So if they didn't have the recovery that, and my mom and dad, if someone told them, have Amanda drink this or have Amanda ice, or, you know, I, even at that age, I didn't want it.
Right, right. We were like,
You
we're
know,
good. We don't need it.
I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. Ice, Advil, I'm good. You know, but and now I'm like in love with hydrotherapy and in love with icing and all the things that, like, I don't know why. Didn't I didn't know how to care for myself or sometimes accept care from others. And so I had to, you know, I know why I was directed, and I chose massage therapy because I was substitute teaching, deciding if I was going to get my teaching, you know, use my education degree and do this. And a guidance counselor was stressed out, and I put my hand on their shoulders. I never, you know, because where we're from, it's like keep your space, you know, you don't
Right,
put your
right,
hands on. But I've always been a very affectionate person
right.
if I feel comfortable. So I consoled her. She said, oh my gosh, you should go to school for massage. You have such an excellent touch. And the next week I was in massage school in the nighttime program. So this was destined for my longevity and for my mental health and for my ability to accept my mind, accept my body, and to embrace my spirit, because there's so many different concepts of spirit, you know. And for me at this point, my spirit is my attitude, and that's the only thing that guides me now, is really my attitude towards things. And I had to learn that through, and we're going to talk about it, I had to learn that through being really low
Yeah.
and finding resiliency now, you know.
And I think
And that,
that's a great segue. Let's get right into that. I think that based off your experience and your journey, and I'm big advocate in my profession, talking about the human experience. I sell technology for a living. So bringing the human experience back to that. So let's talk a little bit about the human experience and how we build that resiliency in times of change or chaos. And not just for just our soul, our spirit, all of it. I'd love to hear your take on it and how you built resiliency through your journey.
well, first and foremost, and we all know this, that it takes a village. So, you know, I really feel like it is community. And despite the challenges even in that, web, because it's not, even though I've had my community, it hasn't been easy connecting to my community, no matter whatever group I was in. So I've noticed that I've become adaptable. So a big part of my resiliency is how can I adapt to where I'm at and decide if really this is in alignment with my morals and my ethics and my values. And that's been continually redefined throughout the years. And, so I just feel like I haven't always been resilient enough to bounce back quick. And when I didn't have the ability to do that, I always had a friend or a mentor or a parent to lean on.
Yeah.
And I sent you, I think one time I sent you that thing or maybe I posted it, but I think you commented on it that like, if you have one person rooting for you, if you have one person, that's enough to sustain you, and for a while I couldn't conceptualize that. Like I wanted more. I didn't feel like I had enough and I just wanted more and more love and more support. And then I had to evolve into cultivating that on my own. So my resiliency in sports up to a certain point ran its course. So bouncing back for me no longer was supporting me. It had become completely unraveled. And so I had to really rebuild who I was, who I've always been, who I denied who I've been, and how can I greet that person, with more love and acceptance, which has allowed me the ability to become resilient again and to feel like a winner even when I lose. So I needed to match all that winning with a hell of a lot of losing after that. So my college career really, it took me many years of healing guilt, healing shame for not being what I thought everybody thought I could be. Because they're always it's just like a job too, your performance levels, they always want you to do more. And I didn't know back then what I know now. And, you only can do what you can. Mm-hmm. And if you get kicked or canned and you have to move on and you have to, adapt, then you learn, how to do that with more grace.
Yeah.
So I really feel like, I'm a licensed massage therapist. And I also really got into yoga, which is what heightened my awareness of my body. Because I could, fling my body around a base to stick my hand in with like I was a gazelle, but put me in a room to do some sort of aerobic step class. And I was like, twisting my ankle.
Right.
So,
right.
Have to do something really obscure, but so I had to really link like catching and playing third were good positions for me because I needed that focus. I needed to be afraid. Like this ball is going to like go down your throat, but I always knew I had reflexes, fast reflexes. So, that built my confidence. But I didn't have flexibility in my mind or my body. So it wasn't all those years later that I was able to, find that flexibility. But what I realized what was happening was trauma was building a wall and it was stiffening me up. It was stiffening me up. It was stiffening me up to the point that I wasn't having fun. The only time it was joyful is if maybe I hit that home run and everybody cheered for me. But if I didn't hit that home run and everybody didn't cheer for me, I didn't have any value. So
and I think that's definitely something that we've all gone through. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I really feel for these kids that are taking their lives, these athletes that have the smile on their face and they're still killing it in the game, but they can't feel themselves. It's amazing what they're doing being numb, but right. We know as a society what brilliant people can do being numb. Yeah. And really, it's funny, I tapped my hat when I said that because I'm wearing a hat from my friend Shayna Gary that went to Iona. Yeah. She played softball there, and this is the Helpful Hat program, and it says, ask me how to get sober. She's in recovery. And, you know, and we talked about, you know, back in the day, we would get drunk after we would celebrate our
Right.
win, and we would get drunk, and that would numb our pain from training and playing. And so it was dual purpose. It was because win or lose, we were drinking.
Right. Win or lose, you celebrated, right?
Yes, yes. And you know, and I said, we said one time, like, why was this encouraged, you know? But it had been, this is a centuries long of tradition, and that's what you do, you know? So it's like we were just following in the footsteps of our peers. And you know, and she, you know, she really inspires me. So I wear this hat. I'm not a completely sober liver, but I've worked a lot in South Florida. I've worked a lot in the addiction community, providing massage, teaching people self-worth, you know, and getting back into their bodies and getting back into their spirit and gratitude for life, and really pinpointing those moments in their life that suck. Because I look at it as like sucking the spirit out of you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know? So it's just such an amazing opportunity to use yoga, use breath work, use massage as these catalysts for rejuvenation, and to allow this whole system that we're operating with to become more focused, more aware, more mindful. And I'm just so grateful that I get to be a part of where, you know, I do mostly sports massage with a focus on acupressure, reflexology, you know, and I work a lot. Cupping therapy is one of the most remarkable therapies today, in my opinion. And if athletes are not getting it, they need to start getting it, or start self-applying it. I'm certified in rock tape. It's a movement company. That's the functional movement aspect of my career, and it complements the yoga perfectly. And they sell these things called rock pods. They're a real gentle, you know, the traditional cupping is done with glass and fire, and then they have plastic pump sets. And now the health industry, the weightlifting industry, more specifically the CrossFit industry, has come out with these silicone ones that are, you know, they're not going to break. They're easily portable, they're easily cleanable, and you don't have to carry a lot of stuff, and you could use them and be very functional. So, you know, it's just something I encourage young athletes to start doing, because everything is either building up or, you know, and needs to be released. So it's all about, you know, building that pressure and then releasing it. And that's the recovery aspect of it, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I think that it's really incredible that you said it's all this building up and then releasing, because I can say I was a very high energy athlete. I'm a very high energy person, and I am someone who I can pick up the energy in a room very easily. And for me, as I transitioned out of high school into college, I really had a hard time transitioning from that energy buildup to finding a way to get a healthy release out of it, so that I didn't carry, whether it was we lost in the MAC championship to St. Peter's because Marcia Kelly hit a home run on a rise ball when I wanted to call a different, you know what I mean?
I love the Kelly sisters.
Yes, yes. You know, so whether it was learning how to deal with that energy and those emotions and processing them in a healthy way to get them out so I could focus on my schoolwork and bringing in the GPA I needed, knowing that at the end of my athletic career, I needed to find another version of Bobby, you know, talking about, like you mentioned, that ability to handle those emotions and that energy, and then really be able to understand that you're not just that athlete identity. It's a part of who you are, but who are you beyond that? And those are some things that I really personally was struggling with, and finding breath work and meditation through you. You know that I reached out to you quite a lot over the last 2 years, just kind of understanding that energy and finding in situations where I felt maybe some trauma or some negative memories coming in, how to handle that energy. So talk to me a little bit about that sense of the why not mentality that was instilled in us so young, and how we're able to pull from that mentality and incorporate things like breath work and be able to process the energy and the emotions of just everyday life.
Great question. So why not? And so that statement comes back to our rings and the back-to-back championships. So we were undefeated. And I told someone a story today because it popped in my head before this meeting with you. And I told her, I said, it's not that like everybody else wasn't as talented as us, because we were playing against other teams that were pretty much at our caliber. We had some pretty close games, so we really had to fight for that. We didn't just get that. We worked really hard for that. And then when the second year rolled around, everybody was saying, everybody started talking as they do, that we, weren't going to pull it off again. We weren't going to beat everyone every single game again. And Coach Duke said, why not? Why not? And he put that, and our first, if you remember our first, we always had a phrase, which I love because now we're into mantras. I don't know why I didn't, he taught us so much and I didn't.
I know that was so ahead of its time. Absolutely.
I know. So he says, stay focused. Stay focused. So stay focused got us our first undefeated championship, and why not sealed the deal. Yeah. And, it gives me the chills even just talking about it now. So, he just pumped us up that in a way that made us undeniably the best team in the whole count. There's just no one could break our bond. We had been playing together since we were children. I mean, we started as teenagers. I was first on the Charmers. I was turning 9.
Right.
I was 8 turning 9, playing with 10-year-olds, and so we were in our first national tournament at that age,
Yeah.
So, it's wild to think, but we were instilled with that comeback kid, no matter what mentality at a very young age. So just to have it continually reinforced all those years, just it was marked the stage for us to perform like that, and back then we didn't have the breath work, and we didn't have, and we've talked about this before, it was that focus, that goal, that objective, that purpose, that reason, that why, that made all the drama. We took it out, like we were like, oh yeah, okay. There was just fuel for our fire. Right. Now it hurt me because I'm a sensitive person. It hurt me. But, we're also talking, we were playing together in the 90s and the 2000s, like hazing was just getting phased out.
Right.
Like it was
right. And NewJersey.com had just come in. So that was like the intro to what you're seeing in some of the bullying taking on in sports right now. We were experienced, I know I did personally, experienced a little bit of that. I mean, to me at the time,
they came after us personally.
Yeah.
They came after you and I often because we were the two powerhouses on the corners in the lineup. It was me and you every time, and they were afraid of us. And all they wanted to do was bring us down and talk crap. But we had such a bond that nothing tore us down, But all that stuff came to really like bite us in the butt later in life because we didn't like, everybody's like, oh, whatever, they're just talking smack and blah, blah. And it's true. But, I don't know, when people start like people telling you who you are or saying negative comments to you at a young age, it doesn't matter how tough you are about it, psychologically deep down, that's creating a lot of shame.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. That shame didn't surface, I know for me personally, until college, when I, was all pumped. I got my scholarship. I made all compliments and they're like, okay, we're going to do an interview. You need to wear makeup. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever worn makeup in my entire life. I got to find someone to teach me how to put it on, and I didn't understand why. And then as I was going through it and graduating, my father and I sat down and my mom, and we talked about the why. And I was like, oh my God. So this related back to everything they were saying when I was a kid that I didn't even let touch me because I didn't even fully understand what they were saying at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you bring up the makeup thing. I got a job. I was getting really like, I kept moving up in my career. as a massage therapist, and we took these pictures, and I love Eastern medicine. So a lot of my stuff is Western based, but I also draw from Eastern. I've trained with acupuncturists, and so I love that. I love that culture. And so when I got this job at this place, I bought this like Zen spa shirt. And then they took a picture of me to introduce me, right? So, and my hair's pulled back. I mean, I look neat. I look nice. And I've never worn a makeup. So my mom, why don't you put a little this on? Why don't you put a little that on? I'm like, why don't you put that away? Because I'm not wearing that. So they put a filter on me that made me look like I had makeup on. And when I saw it, it really took me back. Now, not that I didn't think that I didn't look beautiful, or not that, but without my consent, they changed how I present myself to the world. And that's what we experienced for so long, is you and I were always outside of the box, always outside of the mold, always in some way, shape, or form bigger than life. And and people are always afraid of what they don't understand.
Yep.
So we were getting a lot of backlash, not only as athletes, but as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
As human beings, we were getting a lot of backlash. And so obviously, by the time we're in college, we're adults now. The first time living away from home, we're adults now, and psychologically, I was in for it. I needed to start seeing, but I mean, it took many years for me to really see what I was experiencing in those moments. And softball was everything to me. So once I go to college, now you're expected to be a D1 player, but also D1 grades and D1 academia. Now I could handle the D1 academia with help, just like school. I could handle college prep courses with a little help later on to get the scores I needed to get into school. But in order for me to pass at this D1 school, I needed to put a lot more effort into school. So all those extra hours in the cages, all those extra hours on the field that I put it in high school, that all those private lessons that made me the best, I didn't have that anymore. So now I'm getting dean's list my freshman year, my GPA, doing extremely well in school, but my sports were suffering. And I wanted a social life too. If I had given up my social life, I would have been a great college athlete and a great student. But I wanted the trifecta, and I'm glad. And in hindsight, I don't regret it, because it was wild and fun and what it should have been. But a little part of me is like, wow, Amanda, like, how different would your life been sculpted if you really put blinders on? And but then I just think that, like, that's obviously not my style, and that's obviously not the path I chose. But it's a big reason why I started having so much anxiety and depression, was because I wasn't performing, and this is a new caliber. So now you're playing the best of the best from everybody on it. Exactly. So it's hard. It was hard to accept myself. Now it's hard to accept myself for my sexual orientation. Now it's hard to accept myself as the thing that gave me the confidence to be who I was, or to be more social, or to be more more social. My parents got me involved in sports because I was I always had one best friend, but I wasn't like so eager to be at the big party, or so, I'd have a group of girlfriends. I was very much of a loner type of kid. And and it was sports that brought me out of my shell. But I feel like it was also sports that held me. So even though I wasn't doing my best in college, if I didn't have my teammates, I can't even imagine the chaos and dysfunction and addictions, and how much more severe they would have been if I didn't have my mentors. Right away, I've been open and vulnerable most of my life. So I got help right away in college therapy, holistic therapy, and the traditional therapy starting in college when I didn't have the maturity to even adopt the methods. Like, squeeze an orange behind your chest, like these visualizations. I was like, okay, ready, go out to do this thing. Like, okay, bye, thank you. I just knew that I had to mark these boxes off. I
Right.
needed to get this help, even though I didn't want to implement it yet,
Right.
but it always comes full circle.
Yeah. And I think, you really touched on some really key points that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it really sounds like through your journey, a lot of what you learned, whether it was at 10 or 12 at your national, when we were on the Charmers at nationals, or in high school or college, was that we weren't aware of the importance that balance played in our life until we got to be older. And balance is going to be on a continuum, just like sexuality, just like your career. It's going to be fluid, and there are times where the scales are going to tip one way or the other. But the real ability to be resilient and agile and adaptable lies in your ability to create that internal balance that you need, and to be able to portray that internal balance to the external world. And it sounds like for you, you really found your footing as you were coming out of college, and that really helped you in finding your footing. You went to be a massage therapist because your journey, you were able to help heal people. And I know for me, listening to you talk really highlights for me what I went through, slightly different. I did okay. Obviously I got put in study hall and things, but where it hit me was I was like so laser focused on getting out and getting a scholarship and like making it, that once I graduated college, I was like, well, who the hell is Bobby Joe now? Who am I outside of this incredible catcher and power hitter? Like, I knew I was really fun to be around, and I knew I loved people, but that's where I struggled. And that's where I went to traditional therapy and things like that to try to figure it out. So I think it's really great that you talked about your journey and the ability for resiliency. Talk to me, just as we close it out here, talk to me a little bit about balance and how that mind body connection, and talk to me about the holistic approach. I know, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you are very big in the holistic treatment now. So talk to me a little bit about that and kind of the balance and how holistic treatment can help.
Yeah, well, this acupuncturist I was getting treatment from, I met his wife in yoga. She was also an acupuncturist. He invited me to a continuing education for doctors, but I just paid a smaller amount and I wasn't getting credit for it, but I was able to sit in on it and experience it. And he said something like, something really edgy, kind of like, that balance. Nature is nature, and there is this balance, but it's not always, like you said, the scales are going to always tip. So not clinging to things. So right, getting my footing led me to only more restraining. And the more I restrained myself and tried to let loose via different unhealthy avenues, I was able to rein that in, because I knew deep down that wasn't the big picture. It was just a catalyst for healing. It was just medicine, even if it was viewed as something that might not be good for me. It was good for me because it expanded my mind. And in hindsight, there's so many different avenues you can take to experience that growth. But my resiliency, changed so many times. Like I said, I feel like the support comes from those around you. And as long as you keep reaching out and asking for help, you won't lose guidance, but I wanted to touch upon something else. But through grounding and feeling safe in my body, I was able to let go of a lot of grief, because when we experience loss, whether we're not playing sports anymore or a parent passes, or,
Absolutely.
those things really can affect how we're balancing our life, and it's that bounce back, and to have people be real with you, like, listen, like, not just like ignore the signs,
Right.
but sometimes we're very good actors, and
Absolutely.
you know, we could really cover the truth. Um, but those that really, really know us will
No.
know if something is off. So I think, you know, instilling, you have to sometimes lose your mind to find yourself in your heart, you know? So now instead of being so one way or so the other, and Buddhism always taught me this, but I just love the middle path, the middle way. Like, I don't live in so much fear anymore. You know, I know what the outcomes could be, and I know that judgment, it can be a um, you know, help. I give you healthy parameters with people you're meeting. Judgment is important, but then there's that mirror judgment. You know, the mirror judgment where you're judging them because you're judging yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, so I did a lot of that and I grew out of that, and so I'm just grateful to be, I'm going to be 40 this year, so I'm hitting the 40 club, and I'm just grateful to be, to have these breakthroughs right at the cusp of really potentially my midlife, you know, like, I mean, so
I
many
think the 40s
people.
are the new 20s, you know. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
in the 40, yeah, I'm there already, girl. So it's good. I
Well, we're
agree. I feel
getting
like
to
I'm in my
relive.
prime.
Yeah, we're exactly. We're getting to really. I'm getting to relive my life in a way that if I had necessarily listened to people around me too, like also listening to people closest to you, you have to listen to your own voice. So you know, a lot of people around me, their mantra is getting old sucks. My mantra is getting old is like fine wine. Like getting
Yes.
old is can be aging, can be a graceful process no matter how painful it is. And I think that that's the thing. We have to listen to our pain, and we have to feel into our pain, and we have to move into our pain, and not only just numb our pain, because I use solves and I do cold baths and I make my equilibrium balance. I bring my body back to homeostasis
Right.
through these processes because I can't control nature's balance. And we see how intricate nature is and the geometry and the sacredness behind that. So we have to understand that we're just as, you know, but we also are in an evolutionary ongoing process, just like nature is, you know. So letting, having balance, but then knowing when to knowing the chaos theory, knowing when to just be in it, but how can you get out, you know, how can you avoid that tornado from, like, you know, you're near that tornado, the houses are flying and everything's going everywhere, but you're not, you know, you're not going to be delusional, you know, you're not going to be Dorothy. But sometimes you need to be Dorothy, sometimes you need to get a little delusional, and you need to like realize, or Alice in Wonderland, or all these metaphors for truly, you know, coming back to yourself.
Yeah, I think I love it. I love that you said that because I'm someone with the Invitto experience for Amanda and I, it's my partner, Amanda. It's always been, we're blessed by the journey, right? Because we've been through some tough things and I've been through some tough things, but I love it because I always say I had to lose myself to find myself. I had to let go of all those preconceived notions and all that conditioning of who Bobby was or was supposed to be or told to be, or who society, or even my concept at that time, who I thought the world wanted me to be, and really strip myself down and get lost, and maybe lose myself a little bit and sit with myself in that solitude and really raw and vulnerable and say, this is who I am at my core and this is okay. And the world needs to see and know and get to love this Bobby, because at the core, this is who's been waiting and screaming to come out. So I love
I
the
love
way
it.
you put it, sometimes you got to lose yourself to find yourself. Like you said, I'm so grateful that I went through it early on, even though to me, I've always felt like I was a late bloomer. In retrospect, I think, we're all on our own journey and our own timeline. And I think if we can hold space and perspective for everyone else, especially based off what you said, being there and being that support system, not only for ourselves, but for those people in our circle, I think we're all going to help create a really beautiful change that we all need to see, not just in sport, but in life.
Amanda, you know,
Yes.
us reconnecting after all those years, we, you know, whether I needed some support or you needed some support, we were there for each other. And I've watched Invitto continually grow. I'm a big fan of it. I love supporting your performance coaching. I love that you are now incorporating the breath work, meditation, visualization, all that stuff has really heightened, and to have a coach that's up with the times and modern with the technology, which is what you are. And so you've not only adopted everything that's up and coming, you also have a lot of that old school heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears, energy that I think, the kids really need to see from their coaches. And yeah, it was an honor to be part of this with you. And I'm just so grateful to continue to promote Invitto, because undefeated,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
and that's undefeated spirit. And it's that mantra that has continued to support me too now. It's a phrase that I've adopted since you told me it, and I love it. I love that it's the backbone of your company, because after, it's not only factual, but it is metaphorically how, you want to represent Invitto. And, and I think it's an amazing concept, and I just love it so much. So
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And, I said it to Lara Foster, I think a few weeks ago, teammates for life. And we really were raised with that mentality. And, I'm excited to share
more.
this. I'm excited to share this because I think if there's any message we can give to the youth of today in sports, whether it's rec or travel or even college, it's make some teammates, because those relationships will carry you through life. And in those times of need, those are people that you can reach out to. And Amanda B, thank you so much, because you're a testament to that. So
Thank
thank
you,
you
B.
for your time.